Hey you, yeah you who clicked on this video. Thanks for giving our channel a shot. And if you will, please do us the honor of watching the video all the way through. Appreciate it. Now onto the video.
Hey 8-Bit family, today we're going to be looking into the last episode of Season 1, Episode 8 of Tokyo Vice. The name is Yoshino, and I'm going to try to do this one a little differently. We're going to try to, choose a character, and we're going to go through what happens in this episode with that one character, and we'll move on to the next one and the next one. So let's get into it. I figured we'd start with everyone's favorite hard-headed tourist, Samantha. And we remember that she has been looking for her friend Paulina for quite a while, alienating people and ruining relationships and putting people in danger left and right to find Paulina. So the last thing we remember in the last episode was that Sato couldn't give her what she wanted, so she went to Jake, and she spends the night in Jake's apartment, and Jake's obviously being Jake, he's gonna help her. So she tells him what she knows about Yoshino, and basically it's not a lot. He says, well, are you sure she didn't just run away? And of course, Samantha, in her typical fashion, snaps at him and starts yelling at him like he's something to her and he has to help her. When you're having someone do a favor for you, you kind of try to stay nice throughout the whole thing, but this isn't her, so we're gonna move on. That's just how she is. And so he tells her that he has this source, but to go see said source, they're going to need to have an offering for this source. And if there is anywhere she can just pick up some crystal meth. So, long story short, they go visit the source. They get discovered by the source because they keep asking really, really detailed questions about Tozawa. And it's the meth guy from the past episodes, and he basically is like, who are you? And she shows him the meth, and she's like, if you tell us what we want to know, you can have your drugs. So the guy's like, okay, well, you have to do the drugs with me. And of course, Jake, having a job and somewhere to be and cannot be caught doing meth, was kind of like, no, I'm not doing that. And she's like, sure, we'll do it with you, whatever. And his thing is, I have never done hard drugs. This is not something for me. And she basically forces him into it so she can get information on Paulina. And she finds out, after making Jake extremely high, that Yoshino is not a place. It is a boat that Tozawa has to basically schmooze with the politicians, and he trades the favors of food and sex with beautiful women for favors. So with some difficulty they leave the crackhead's house meth head's house, and understandably Jake starts freaking out because he's never done meth before and he's extremely high, and she's trying to calm him down, and he's telling her that he can't help her because he has no sources, that nobody will talk to him, nobody likes him anymore. And her way of calming him down is making out with him, which can confuse a very fragile Jake in this moment. So I don't know what she was thinking. But I think that's just kind of her go-to, is to use her femininity to manipulate, which I suppose is a female thing to do. If you use it responsibly, it's not that bad. She does not use it responsibly. It's not. Anyway, let's move on from that. So Jake tells her that he is going to go back to his work or his job, and he's going to extremely high go to his work and investigate more about Yoshino on the boat and all that. So they go their separate ways. Then she's walking home, I'm assuming, and then she runs into the guy that was dating Paulina, quote unquote, the dude from the host club. And he's telling her that they've called him and they have left messages, and they said that they were going to kill her if they didn't get what was owed to them, blah, 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 and that he really did care about her and he's just trying to save her life. And it's not like Samantha doesn't know this guy isn't a piece of shit. Like, you know that he doesn't care about anybody but himself, but somehow you're either too high or too distressed to understand that this is probably a setup. Which, you know, it's obvious, it's a setup. But she goes and she takes every bit of her money, puts it in a bag, follows this really shady dude that has already put her friend on a sex boat because he didn't care enough to protect her, and goes to this exchange. Then, and only then, does she get suspicious that something might be wrong. And of course, once she starts questioning things and asking to see her friend, the guy pushes her to the ground, takes all her money, gets in the van, and drives off. So realizing that she's been robbed, she goes to a bank and asks for a loan, which clearly she has no family, no collateral, no way of proving to the bank that there is any way of getting their money back. So of course the bank tells her, sorry, we cannot give you a loan. Even if it is for a couple of days, you have no way of backing it up. So of course she does what she thinks the only option is. And if you guess Sato, well, you're wrong. She did not go to Sato. She went straight to his Oyobun, Ishida, and made a deal with them behind Sato's back. And she goes home, I guess, and Sato tells her that they've agreed to give her the money and that they're gonna basically pay the club owner, because she asked the club owner she works for a favor to, I guess, meet the Yakuza. And, you know, Sato's trying to help her. He's like, you don't understand what you're getting into. You don't understand who these people are and what you are going to get stuck with. And she tells him she is perfectly aware of what's happening and who she's in bed with now. And, you know, they agree to keep everything professional. You can tell that Sato still has real feelings for her. And he also understands that they cannot be together. Because it's not healthy for either one of them. But just to point out, he did try to save her from herself. And that's that for Samantha. Next, let's go to Jake. Let's talk about Jake. So we covered that he was with Samantha most of the time. He went to work, he got some information, he got extremely high, and then had to go back to work. So he goes to work, and Emmy is like, he's telling Emmy all this stuff, and he's acting really weird, and she's just like, are you high? And he was like, well, I kind of had to do meth to get information out of a source. And her thing is, are you insane, or are you just the most dedicated reporter I have ever met in my life? Because nobody would do that. Not for information, not for anything. It's meth, for God's sake. So he goes home and gets ambushed by Tozawa's men. Gets the living crap beat out of him. Although I will give him props, he did put up quite the fight. I mean, the other two that were jumping him were not unscathed. I mean, to the point where they forgot they were there to hurt him and not kill him, because one of them almost did, and the other one had to remind them that, yes, he kind of hurt us, but you can't kill him. This was supposed to be a message. So the poor guy had to do meth and get beat up all in one day. He was not having a great day. So they knock him out, and when he wakes up and everything's destroyed, he just kind of sits there for a minute, and decides that he's going to call home. Now, it is obviously a 14-hour difference between, where his parents are and he is. So for him, it's still daytime, but it's the middle of the night back home. And he calls and leaves a message, and his dad picks up. And we get more information now in this episode about his family. His dad seems really cool. Like, his dad seems like he's just struggling to be a dad. He's trying to make sure his son is okay, and he's trying to make sure that his daughter's okay. And he doesn't want to compromise either one of their happiness. So he's talking to his dad, and his dad's like, well, son, take care of yourself. Your mom worries. And he, Jake is like, well, how is my sister doing? And of course, dad's just like, well, do you really want to know, or do you want me to just tell you everything's all right? And Jake is like, well, let's not argue about this. And I don't really know where that came from. But dad just seemed really tired about the whole thing. He just seemed like he didn't want to argue with his son. He was just happy to hear his voice. And he tells him that his sister's not okay. His sister wants him to think she's okay, but she's not. So Jake's like, okay, well, what if I come home? And his dad, being a dad, is like, son, is that what you want to do? And then he tells him, you sound tired. Why don't you go lay down and go to sleep? And tomorrow, if you still want to come home, I'll buy you a ticket myself. And they have this really nice little, exchange. And Jake is sitting there bleeding. But it sounded like he just really needed to talk to his family. And he really, really needed that conversation with his father. So that was a really nice moment for him. So he goes to bed. He wakes up the next morning. He tries to clean himself up and get ready for work, and opens the door, and there is something there with his name on it. So he goes inside, he watches it, and it is a video of Paulina. And the tape said Yoshino. And it seems like it's a video of Paulina getting killed. So, one of those dignitaries that I'm assuming owed Tozawa money was on the boat, and, Paulina fought him off, and they came and basically killed her by fighting her. And, so he's now worried because what do we do with this information? So he goes to see Katagiri, and Detective Katagiri is alone in his house, and he's like, where's the family? He says, out of town. And then the last thing you see is Jake telling him, there's something I need to show you. I know that I messed up. I know this. I know that you don't trust me, and I am begging you for a second chance. And so Katagiri allows him in, and that's the end of that. So since we ended with Katagiri and Jake, let's start with Katagiri. Detective Katagiri, obviously in the last episode, found out who the mole was. It was Miyamoto, and Miyamoto is clearly having a struggle because now he knows he's been caught. So he goes to Katagiri, and he's basically like, what are we doing? What's happening? So, Katagiri's like, you're going to have to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. So he, they go to this little fishing spot, and Miyamoto tells him everything that's happened, everything that he has been done for him. He tells him that he had an arrangement with them, and that's how he made so many arrests, because they were giving him tips, and all of the tips were good. So he was making arrests left and right. And Katagiri was saying, yeah, I remember that. It was impressive. So they talk about it, and he's basically like, what do I do? He was like, I wanted always to be a good cop, so what do I do? Do I resign? Do I confess? What do you want me to do? And Katagiri's like, listen, you're greedy and you're dirty, but you were a good cop, and you should be able to redeem yourself. So he tries to convince Miyamoto to basically go back to Tozawa and tell him that, Katagiri didn't have anything, and that Katagiri was working with Ishida the whole time, and all of this stuff. And Miyamoto, of course, agrees, because he wants to redeem himself. He wasn't technically a terrible person. He just got caught up in the easiness, I guess, of getting tips and making arrests without having to do any of the legwork or any of the evidence gathering on his own. He had too much help for too long, and he, according to him, even he said he got lazy. So, he's jumping to the opportunity of redeeming himself. Katagiri basically tried to convinced him to play double agent. So Minamoto does exactly that. He goes to talk to Tozawa, tells him that there's a rumor around that says that Katagiri's dirty and that he has been working with Ishida the whole time, and that they don't have anything, and that he's in the clear. And then you could see this shift in Tozawa's face, and he goes, okay, well, as per our prior agreement, you're free from us. We won't be working together anymore. And, he was like, well, why mess up a good thing? I'll still help you. You help me. We'll keep this going. So next we see Katagiri and him having coffee or something, a little coffee shop. And he's telling him that there's a shipment tonight, and that they want him there to make sure that cops don't snoop around. And of course, to everyone, including the audience, we're all kind of, that doesn't sound right. Why tonight? Why right now? Why do you have to be there? See, there's a lot of questions that, as a detective, you probably should have asked yourself. It smelled like a trap. And Katagiri even was like, are you sure? Because this doesn't sound right. Why tonight? Are you setting me up? So, Miyamoto was like, no, I'm trying to redeem myself. I'm trying to get a second chance. And, so they agreed to meet at this warehouse where he's going to leave the door open, and Katagiri's going to set up a bunch of cameras and basically catch Tozawa red-handed. And so the next thing you know, you see Miyamoto in the car, and they pass the exit, and he's like, well, isn't this where we're supposed to go? And they're like, no, we're going to go a little further. Now we all know that that's not good for Miyamoto. We know that he's not going to make it at this point. He tries to make a call to warn Katagiri, but they wouldn't give him his phone, so there's that. Then you see Katagiri basically parked outside the warehouse they agreed to be at. And he finally realizes that nothing's happening, and that Miyamoto's been missing. No call, no check-in, nothing. And he calls him, it goes straight to voicemail. And I don't agree with this part that he did, because he messed up on this part. I wouldn't have gone into that warehouse. But he takes his gun out, his revolver, and he waltzes into this warehouse by himself, where Tozawa was waiting for him, and basically informs him that he respected him, and that Miyamoto messed up when he told him that he was dirty, because he knew that you were the incorruptible cop. There was nothing that could have corrupted Katagiri, and that was the one thing that he respected about him. But unfortunately, he's digging too much, and he'll probably end up, putting Tozawa behind bars. So he informs him that he has killed Miyamoto, and that he will kill his family, his daughters, if he doesn't stop investigating him. Which, of course, there's nothing more important to Katagiri than his family. He loves his daughters, and he loves his wife. And they did have this little beautiful scene with him and his little girls. And, the little girls painted Jake as a little clown demon thing. And they're just this beautiful little family. And of course, that's his life, that's his circle. So he puts his gun down, and he realizes that this guy is for real. He will kill his family. which is why he went home and sent his family away, and that's when Jake shows up. So that is Katagiri's story. R.I.P. Miyamoto. So as a quick mention, I wanted to point out that Tozawa's girlfriend is kind of a trooper. Like, she tries to be as kind as she can to him, and he beat her in this episode where he hit her really hard. And that lady that was in his birthday, the one that was telling him last episode, thank you for everything you've done for us, I swear to you, that's her mother. Like, they look alike, and it seems like they know each other so well. So I feel like her mom is the reason that she has to date Tozawa. And so when he hit her, she just kind of walks out, and they look at each other, and she walks out. Like, she gave that glare that you would only give basically a parent that has put you in a bad situation. So I just wanted to point that part out. I mean, I'm sure we'll see a lot more of her, and I hope that she gets to get out of this really bad situation that she is in. So last person that I will talk about today is Sato, and my heart, oh god, okay. So we start with seeing Sato in the business meetings, basically telling his Oyabun that he thinks that they should innovate a little more. And while they're having this conversation, Ishida is eating, I guess, his lunch or something, and his soup apparently had vegetables that were cut in a disproportionate fashion. So he gets up in the middle of this conversation and he goes and looks for the person that made his soup, and it's Sato's boy, the one that he recruited. And he's a kid, so he's basically saying that, he did learn how to cut the vegetables, but he was only taught once, and that it's not fair that they expect him to do it perfectly after being taught only once. And of course, that's not something you say. You basically just apologize, say you're gonna do better, and then you move on. You don't say it's not fair. So, of course, Ishida has a violent reaction to that. He throws the soup in his face and, tells the kid that he needs to not make excuses and that he needs to take responsibilities for his actions. And then walks up to Sato and says, you recruited him, you straighten him out. So, of course, Sato feels bad for the kid, but he tells him, making a mistake is alright. But you have to fix it. You have to make it better. You cannot make it again. Because being a Yakuza is about sacrifice. And he asks the kid, do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? The kid nods, and then, they go back into a meeting, and then you hear screaming again. So they leave, and it's this kid trying to cut off his pinky finger. And Oyabun is basically like, you can't do anything right, huh? You can't cut through your knuckle bone like that. You'll never get it off. You're supposed to cut a little further up if you're going to do some sort of offering to me. So they take the knife away from the kid, and Sato now has to take this child to the hospital for them to fix his finger. And then Sato realizes this kid's not really made for this life. It's not for him. So he drives him back to his uncle's house and tells him to play video games and buy shoes, and gives him a wad of money, and tells him to go to his uncle and tell him that he was like, tell him you missed him, tell him that you will do better. And he makes the kid just get out of the car, which to me shows that Sato has a really good heart, and he's still trying to figure out if he even wants to be in this world. I mean, at this point, he doesn't have much of a choice, but that's what he was trying to figure out. During this whole time, I forgot to mention that while he was leaving the hospital with the kid, he basically saw himself and his mother in this, the two people that were walking by. His mom was the person's mom was older and on a cane, and she was going slow, and the son was trying to help her cross the road, and he was going through that emotional trauma that he still hasn't dealt with because he was helping Samantha with her problems, and he still hasn't dealt with the fact that his mom no longer accepts him as a son and treats him really badly. And so you see his struggle with, I want my family back. And that's kind of why he drove the kid home and was like, not everybody gets to have their family. So go and fix it with yours. So he comes back to the office and he's looking for Ishida, and Ishida's in a meeting. And when he sees who's coming out of that meeting, it was the club owner of the club that basically Paulina and Samantha work, and Samantha coming right out after him. And he's just kind of like, what the hell? Like, why are you here? And Oyabun basically tells him that Samantha's ambitious and that she wants to open her own club, and that they're going to pay for the losses of the original club Onyx, for her losses for her not being there anymore and opening her own club, and that they are going to support her through it. And if the club makes a bunch of money, then they'll change the rules on her and basically become permanent partners to that club. So basically they'll be taking 50% of whatever the club makes, or more. I don't know the percentage that they're going to take. And Sato is basically now trying to defend and protect her and tell him that's a terrible idea. She's a hothead. She's never run a business. This might fail. And Oyabun's basically like, no, I've made my decision. She's going to get her club. She's going to get her money, and we're going to get ours. And he puts Sato in charge of making sure to protect their investment when it comes to her. Which means if she steps out of line, he's going to have to hurt her. And again, that's not Sato. He doesn't want to do that. He clearly still cares about her. And that's when we go to, him and her and their conversation, and he walks off, and he goes to his car after his conversation with her, basically saying, we'll keep this professional. And they have this moment where they almost kiss, and he decides against it. And he goes and he walks up to his car, and then that goofy little asshole that's always at the office of the Yakuza, the one that's always beat up, I don't even know his name because I don't care to, but he hurt my Sato. See, now I am upset. They stabbed my boy. They stabbed our boy, guys, and I'm not okay with this. So now they have left me at the final season without knowing if our boy is going to live through this. But they better hope that he lives through it, because I might not watch this if he does not make it, I swear to you. So, and I know that this is based on a true story, and I have not read the books. I'm going to confess that right now. I have not read the books. I don't know what happens, but my heart will break if Sato dies. So please keep him alive. And please let him get his revenge and beat the living crap, if not kill, that little weasel. Anyway, personal anger and feelings aside, that is as much as I'm going to say about the final season. I'm going to let you guys tell me your favorite parts, or the parts you hated the most about, the season or the episode. And I hope that you enjoy this season as much as I do. Leave a comment below and tell me what you thought. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week. 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace.
If you'd like to get a shout out on the channel, then hit that like button, maybe share it with a couple of friends, and do us the biggest honor of all, and subscribe to the channel so you can join the 8-Bit Heroes family. And while you're at it, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when our new videos come out.